Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Dale Barzi. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. Today, it is my very great pleasure to welcome Teresa Burgess out of California. Teresa is an experienced nurse with over 40 years of experience in healthcare advocacy and patient education. She's a writer. She writes health and wellness content for publications whose mission it is to educate, inspire, and advocate for their readers. And she says that as a person with a currently incurable neuromuscular disease, she particularly enjoys writing for those who suffer from a physical challenge, emotional conflict, or spiritual turmoil. She's a Christian, a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. Welcome, 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 Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Teresa, what brought you into nursing?
When I was in high school, and I was not one of those girls that grew up thinking I wanted to be a nurse. In fact, when I was little, I wanted to be a trash man, that or own a pet store.
Yeah.
No, but when I was in high school, my best friend and I took what's called a regional occupation program. They have for seniors, you could take a class that prepared you for an occupation, and I chose nurse's aide, even though I knew nothing about it. And I knew right away that this was it. This was my calling. And I have never regretted it since. I became a nurse's aide first and worked in a nursing home and then went to nursing school.
Well, so you knew right away. You just left the trash man behind. I knew right away that you wanted to be a nurse. But what challenges did that present for you?
Well, my parents were not very supportive of it. In fact, my dad, who had been in the Navy, said, you know, nurses, they bathe men. He kind of had this, I don't know where he got it, you know, World War II, that nurses were kind of loose. And so he did not have a very good opinion of the profession. He did not encourage me to go into it. It's funny because in their older years, my parents bragged about me being a nurse, and both of them benefited by me being a nurse. So yeah, they were proud of me later, but at the time I did not get any big support to do it. I just knew it's what I was supposed to do.
And so you did it. And so you did it. But you know, you talk about his impression of nurses being loose, but that is portrayed, that was not unique to him. That was almost kind of universal in a way. And it's still portrayed today in the way nurses are very often portrayed in, you know, in movies, on TV, and whatever, presented as kind of like, how sweet. You know.
Yeah, I don't know if he got it from the media or I got the impression he got it from the military, because when I suggested that I could go into the Navy and get my training paid for, he was not in favor of that.
Okay. So what kind of areas did you work?
I started out working in critical care. 6 months out of school, I was a charge nurse on nights in a post-cardiac care unit. And then I moved to Loma Linda University in Southern California and worked in the cardiac care unit. I loved cardiac stuff. I still do. And I had always kind of wanted to be a midwife. But people discouraged you to do that right out of school. They said you need to get a broader experience. So when I met my husband and moved to Northern California, I explored the world of obstetrics, and I got a job at San Francisco General Hospital in labor and delivery. didn't take me long to figure out I didn't want to be a midwife after that, because I would go from one labor room to the next, and I would hear oi oi oi, ay ay ay. There were such high risk obstetrics that I thought it's just too risky as far as lawsuits. You know,
Mhm,
you could be
mhm.
sued, I understand, until a child is 18 years of age. And I just thought, I don't think I could handle that stress. So, but I did stay in obstetrics a while, and then I, because of, you know, childbearing and marriage, trying to get off night shift, then I moved to a metabolic unit. I floated to critical care, floated to oncology, floated to the emergency room. And the emergency room sort of intrigued me. So my next job, I went into the emergency room. I had I'd attained CCRN in critical
Yeah,
care. I decided that obstetrics, you had to be both labor nurse, operating room nurse, nursery nurse,
yeah.
lactation nurse,
Mhm.
and postpartum nurse. And I said, I can't be really good at all of those. Um, so I tried the emergency room, and I became a mobile intensive care nurse and a certified emergency nurse. And then I kind of got burned out,
Yeah,
seeing the same people rotating through the doors in the emergency room. Um, and I went into nursing education. Um, I became a certified diabetes educator. Um, and that served me well for other jobs. I worked as an advice nurse. I worked in podiatry as a foot care nurse. I did a little home health and hospice. I just floated all over the place. My later job before I retired from hospital nursing was in the quality department doing peer review, and
yeah,
um, that was that was a good way to end my career, because physically I was not able to be on my feet at the bedside any longer.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and since I retired, I just, you know, I'm not going to let my license lapse. I've done things like be a vaccinator during the COVID
mhm,
pandemic. I've worked as a consultant doing HEDIS abstraction and chart reviews.
yeah.
And my latest venture, starting in 2023, is freelance nurse writing.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And all of those, and you're coming now, you're coalescing as a writer, and all of those experiences that you've had, just you bring them to bear with this, because there's so much need for um uh good information out there. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of it that's questionable. So there's need for factual, good, evidence-based information.
Yeah, even my husband doesn't quite grasp that. Although you can pick up your smartphone and ask Google any question, the information that you get in return is not necessarily reliable. and I don't think, I think many people fall into that category. They just figure if it's on the internet, it must be good information, and
Yeah.
they often get steered wrong.
What do you think you would like to see um change?
Um, One of the things, well, there's two things. One is I'm seeing people go into nursing with the wrong motive. They they see that it pays well, um, and that's their motivation. Um, and I don't like to see that. I want people taking care of me when I'm getting older that are really called to nursing and not motivated by money.
Mhm.
I understand we have to provide for our families and all of that, but um, yeah, if that's your main motivation, you know, I don't like that. And so I don't want people going into nursing that aren't called to it. And the other thing is I see technology has been wonderful, but it's taken nurses away from the bedside, and the acuity of nursing now is so high that nurses are not able to spend time with their patients, assessing them, connecting with them.
Yeah,
That's sad, touching them.
yeah, yeah,
That,
yeah. And I have to wonder where that leads, because as I look every day, something new regarding technology, something new is on board. And just when I think I know and I have grasped what this is, there are 10 other things out there that I had no idea of. You know,
yeah.
and so
We
you're
probably can't
constantly.
even imagine. Yeah, we probably can't even imagine the future of all this technology. And,
Exactly, exactly. I
it's
look and I
very
wonder.
sci-fi.
I wonder how in 5 years, what it will look like. I think that I will be probably completely out of my depth. In terms of, but we will see. We will see. You know, you try to keep up, but it moves so quickly. What would you say over the years is your greatest achievement as a nurse?
Um, well, besides being able to advocate for my own family and my parents, I would say the lives that I've been able to affect and be a part of saving.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes literally, sometimes by instilling knowledge or something else. Um, and I hope I'm leaving a legacy behind me that will inspire other people to be nurses and to be good nurses. And you should
Mhm.
always be a little bit afraid, uh, because it's a big responsibility. You have lives in your hands.
But
Yes.
you have been an educator. Um, what advice do you give to people? If somebody wants to be a nurse, what advice would you give them?
Um, if you love to learn, if you have a innate curiosity, because nursing requires the ability to be a lifelong learner. You're never going to arrive. It's always going to be something to learn and something to improve. Um, if you like people, if you care for people, if you can be empathetic and put yourself in other people's shoes, these are all qualities of a good nurse. You develop the ability to be a critical thinker, but you have to be open to being one. And if
Yeah,
those are things that you enjoy, if you like science, and um, then nursing might be a good place for you. And one of the wonderful things about nursing is there are 1,000 careers in one. You become a nurse and you can choose from thousands of
yeah,
alternatives.
yeah,
And I know that nursing is stressful, and I think it always will be, but when you find yourself overwhelmed or burnout in one field, you can find another field. And I've been able to do that over the life of my career, and I'm so thankful for that. I've been able to work it around raising children and
yeah,
a marriage, and it's
yeah.
been unique in that sense. I can go anywhere in the world and find a job. And my husband is always amazed. Even now, still at age 67, I was offered a job yesterday in San Luis Obispo, a labor and delivery job. And I politely said, no, thank you. But, you know, he's just amazed that I can find a job so easily.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so you segued into writing, and you specifically say that you write for publications whose mission it is to educate, inspire, and advocate for their readers. Right?
Yes.
Um,
I have a it's currently incurable neuromuscular disease called Charcot-Marie-Tooth. 1 in 2,500 people have it, and I really didn't know anything about this until I was diagnosed with it in 2015. And so I have a desire to educate doctors and nurses about it, because I've found that most of them don't know anything about it. And I probably could have been diagnosed a lot sooner, and it would have, if not physically, at least psychologically, have been real beneficial to me to have been diagnosed sooner. Since I've been diagnosed, my son and my brother have been diagnosed. So, and I realized that my mother had it and never knew it. So that's one of the reasons I've been on the receiving end of a lot of healthcare, as well as giving healthcare. I've had 10 hip replacements since my 20s because of congenital hip dysplasia. And so I can show you the whole gamut of the evolution of hip surgeries. But I also did work in a faith-based pregnancy clinic, working with women facing unplanned pregnancies. And I myself have been through an abortion, which did have lifelong effects on me psychologically. So I have a heart for women facing struggles emotionally and physically, and not just women, but anybody. And I like incorporating holistic thought into healthcare issues. We are all body, mind, and spirit, and there's too much emphasis put on the body and not enough on the mind and spirit. I think we saw through the pandemic how important mental health is. And my faith is very important to me. So yeah, I like to incorporate all of that into my writing whenever possible.
Yeah. You talked about earlier about, we talked with people getting burnt out in certain specialties and stuff like that. I believe that all the outside pressures, yes, do contribute to burnout, but also the fact that we tend to leave ourselves behind. We tend to do everything for everyone else and not take care of ourselves as we should, also contributes. So what do you do to care for you?
Well, early in my career, I didn't. I didn't even think about it. I just poured out. And as I became a wife and mother and had other pulls on my time, I realized I was going to have to find some balance. One of the things I did when I was an emergency room nurse, which was very stressful, especially when I took care of young children that were my own children's age, it would be easy to bring home that stress. There was a hill that I had to drive over coming home from the emergency room, and I would picture a big velvet curtain like you see in the old movie theaters closing behind me as I drove home over that hill. Just within mind, okay, we're done. We're leaving work. We're leaving it behind. We're now entering home. And it helped me to visualize that and try not to open that curtain and peek in it before I had to be back there again.
But the thing is, each person has to find a mechanism that works for them. I know certainly in my student days and even as a young nurse, along the way, it was nowhere was it mentioned. I didn't even consider really taking care of myself. At some point, I realized I had to find a way to leave work at work, and that it was not just as simple as, okay, bye, I'm going home, that's it. You just took the whole thing with you anyway, and you had to find a mechanism. And I don't know if that is stressed enough when we're talking to students, when we're creating this, that it is important to find a way to leave work at work, because it's not easy.
Even all these years away from the hospital, I still have dreams about hospitals. For some reason, one that sticks out in my mind, when I was learning how to start IVs, I remember a dream about a patient wrapping me in IV tubing and stuffing me in the patient closet. So it's going to come out somehow. It's going to come out in your dreams. It's going to come out in your attitude and approach to other people in your family. You're gonna, you're gonna pay for it if you don't find an outlet and you don't find a way to mitigate all that stress.
Yeah. You're gonna you definitely are going to pay for it one way or the other if you don't.
Yeah.
Teresa, it has been great talking to you. I wonder, before we go, is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
Yes. In order to be a good nurse, you have to be like the violinist. You can't be so tough that you can't play beautifully, but you've got to be soft enough so that you can empathize with people. But you're just like the violinist has to have calloused fingers so that they don't bleed when they strum those strings. You have to find a balance as a nurse between being able to empathize with people and being able to protect yourself. I think the greatest quality of a nurse is her ability to empathize. But if you don't balance that with like you said, care for yourself and finding balance in places outside of your work environment, you're going to bleed.
Yeah, you are going to bleed. You are going to bleed. You're going to bleed. Teresa, thank you so very, very much for this. It's been great talking to you.
You too.
My pleasure, my absolute pleasure.
Take care now.